What's up, everyone, and welcome back to Cinematic Reviews. As always, I'm your host, Chris, and this is the show about all things movies and TV. I got another awesome episode for you today. I'm going to go over some tidbit of news that have hit the Hollywood sphere lately. One piece of news I can't believe I'm going to be talking about on the podcast today, but I'm going to do it anyways because it's just so ridiculous. And then leading into our featured film for today's episode, which is How to Train Your Dragon, the latest remake film to hit theaters. Very excited to cover this movie. It's one that I've been looking forward to all year, and I can't wait to give my review of it. Reminders of at the top, you can watch the show every week at youtube.com/the cinematic reviews. You can also listen to the audio version on all major podcast listening services, such as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Music. So with that, let's head over to news and reactions. I've got a couple box office numbers that I want to go over with you today. The first one being Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning is set to lose the studio over $300 million. This, of course, is the final installment of the Tom Cruise-led franchise, and it's underperforming at the box office, unfortunately. Not exactly sure on the numbers. I can pull it up here, but it is, like I said, set to lose the studio a ton of money. Unfortunately, this is kind of what happens to franchises over the years. People just start to get worn out of them, I think, and the story just starts to take a hit. I think it's tough with this franchise in particular being Fallout at the highest peak that this franchise could have been, and after that, it's kind of uphill battle trying to reach that peak of the mountain. But at least we got some really good installments in this franchise. Let me pull the number up here. So currently the box office sits at worldwide $500 million, which, you know, with a normal film, with a normal budget, this would actually be pretty decent. But for Final Reckoning, the budget was $400 million. Now, this also includes the marketing budget, which I believe, and that's kind of the issue now with some of these big blockbuster films. The studios just throw a bunch of money in marketing. I remember when Avengers Endgame, Avengers Infinity War was coming out, and that the budget alone for that one, production wise, was like $250 million. But what Marvel did was they doubled that budget and throw that into marketing, and that seems to be the trend lately. Is you have a $100 to $200 million budget for production, you kind of have to anticipate it being doubled that for marketing. So then the total budget ends up being, 350 to 400 million, which kind of sets the movie back even before it hits the theaters. I think studios need to start scaling back on the marketing, kind of pick the lanes they want to go, like TV ads. I don't think those really need to be a thing anymore. With the streaming world, the YouTube, all those systems running right now, you really don't need to spend money on TV ads. We have YouTube TV. That's really the only time that I see, movie trailers other than, in the theater, which is a big, I understand that is a huge place to sink your money into for trailers, which makes sense, and now studios with their own streaming services like, Warner Brothers has Max, Paramount has Paramount Plus, Apple has Apple Plus. They're kind of exclusively showing these trailers on their streaming services, which makes sense. But they're still running ads, on TV, YouTube TV, Dish Network. Maybe cut that out of your budget and kind of give the movie a chance to make a run for it in the theaters. If you tack on, a $350 to $400 million budget on a movie, it's kind of an uphill battle through the entire process. You basically have to hit like 300 million within its first few weeks to even break even with the budget, and then after that it's all profit. For example, we're going to get to How to Train Your Dragon today. That budget was I think the budget for that movie was about 190 to 200 million. Well, it made 200 million in its first weekend. So anywhere from here on out, it's all profit for that movie, which is the way to go. Same thing with Stitch. Stitch had about, I think that budget was 100 million. And they have already, Stitch has already crossed 850 million worldwide. So everything pretty much from day one has been profit for Stitch. Whereas these big studios like Disney with the Thunderbolts, which is another one on my list, Thunderbolts is set to lose $100 million for Disney, even though fans and audiences around the world have pretty much stapled Thunderbolts as one of the best theater going experiences since Spider-Man No Way Home. And the movie is still going to be considered a failure because it's going to cost the studio a bunch of money because it didn't make up for the outrageous budget. So I think studios really need to start looking at the numbers and lowering their marketing budget for these films. And I think if they kind of sink a little bit, either shift that over to production or just kind of wipe away the marketing as much as possible. I think it's going to set up the movie for success every single time. More money you sink into the production wise, it's going to create theoretically a more quality movie. Granted, that doesn't always happen because there's other things that go into it, like the script, the director, the cast, and a few bit of luck. I think you can tie into there too. But main issue that I see with these budgets and things losing studios' monies and getting labeled flops, it all comes down to the budget, particularly that marketing piece of the budget. Studios need to scale back a bit and cut that budget way down in order to give the movie or project that they're working on a fighting chance in the theaters or the streaming services. I know Marvel's big thing now with the Thunderbolts profits coming in and looking at the numbers, they've already stated that they're going to start scaling back on projects. They're going to start axing projects, which is good. Marvel over the past few years has had this trend of just pumping out projects and movies left and right every year. They need to go back to the original formula, which was 2 movies a year, and then maybe toss in a Disney Plus show during that year. We don't need 4 movies and 3 shows every year. That's just too much, and that's a lot of money going into those projects. That maybe 2 of those are actually quality projects, or actually going to make a profit on. But I think what Marvel's easiest fix for this would be to adjust their marketing strategy when it comes to the budget and kind of reworking it into the production budget, or just kind of finding different avenues to prevent a movie like Mission Impossible from having a $400 million budget. So basically it needs to hit 400 million to break even. Well, a lot of movies nowadays, it's barely tapping 450 to 500. So you're barely going to make a profit on these. So that's what I think is the biggest issue with these box office numbers lately. And I hope studios start to realize that these budgets need to start getting scaled back a bit, because it's just setting up these movies for failure in the theatrical run that they go through. So last bit of news I'm going to talk about, and I can't believe I am going to be talking about this, but when I saw this headline the other day, I said to myself, I have to talk about this on the podcast because it's just so ridiculous. As you know, Sydney Sweeney is a huge icon in Hollywood right now. She became popular with the Max series Euphoria. Now she's gone on to a bunch of different projects like Madam Web, and one of my favorites, Anybody But You, alongside Glenn Powell. And she's terrific. I love Sydney Sweeney. I think she's a terrific actress. I think she's a terrific person. And of course, as you know, she's been the spokesperson for the Sasquatch soap. And now she has come out with her own soap made of her own bathwater. Yes, you heard it correctly. The newest scent from Squatch soap is Sydney Sweeney bathwater. I think the official title, I have it written down here, is Sydney's Bathwater Bliss. What are we doing, guys? And I'm speaking to the small percentage of male adults out there, or maybe teenagers, whatever the age range is. She did this obviously as a joke, as a gimmick, to make money. And people these things are actually selling out, which is the most ridiculous part I think, of this whole headline. They are running out of soap. Like, they can't make it fast enough for the demand. Why is there even a demand for this? This is kind of disgusting, honestly. Guys, what are you doing? One bar of soap, which was the very first one made, sold for $1,499. Like, excuse me, $1,499. One bar of soap went for $1,500. What are we doing? I've seen bars even get sold for $2,000. This is just outrageous, and it's totally ridiculous. But this is where we've come to. We've come to buying soap made of celebrities' bathwater. I I just don't know what to say after that. Like, what are we gonna do next? We're going to pay $3,000 for Sydney Sweeney to spit on us. Like, I know a few years ago, I remember, you go to a restaurant in LA and you're like, oh, William Shatner wiped his mouth with that napkin. I'm gonna go grab that napkin and I'm gonna sell it on eBay for $300. Fine, I can see where there's a market for that. You're gonna frame that napkin up on a wall. Look, you got some DNA of William Shatner on your wall. But this is Sydney Sweeney's bathwater. Like, what are we doing? Like, this doesn't need. I can't believe this is a thing. I have no other words for this. Like, just what are we doing? What happened to where we have to get Sydney Sweeney to make a bar of soap out of her used bathwater? Like, she could have been super sweaty from a workout that day, and you're gonna put that on your body. Like, I don't even want to imagine what that bar of soap smells like. Like, I'm not gonna buy it personally, and I really don't want to find out what it smells like. My curiosity isn't that high. I just I don't know what else to say. Just what are we doing, guys? This is totally ridiculous. But this is the world we live in, and it's probably going to get even more ridiculous from here. I mean, this is just the first step in a long, ridiculous trend that we're going to start. That these people are going to start. It's just this is ridiculous. Anyways, that's the news I got for you today. Let's head over to our featured film of the day, How to Train Your Dragon, the newest live action take on the very popular animated franchise. Like I said, today's featured film is How to Train Your Dragon, the latest live action take on the popular animated franchise. This, of course, is coming off the heels of another live action film of a animated classic, Lilo and Stitch. We live in an awesome time in Hollywood. I know I joked about what we have come to with this Sydney Sweeney bathwater, but it's talking strictly about movies. We're in an awesome era. We got the final installment of Mission Impossible. We have Marvel kind of getting back into the groove with the Thunderbolts. We have two live action remakes of very popular animated films that seem to be crushing the box office and audience are loving, with Lilo and Stitch, How to Train Your Dragon. We have a awesome Brad Pitt movie coming out, F1, which is looking like an Oscar-worthy movie. We've got another Jurassic Park movie coming out. We've got another Superman take. We've got Fantastic Four making another try at the theater. We've got Wicked Part 2 coming later on this fall. And we have another Avatar movie coming out later in the year, which is awesome. This is a great movie year. And I'll get into this a little more in the rankings segment of today's episode, but this movie caught me by surprise. I haven't really been like attached to the animated series. I remember watching the first one, a few years ago with my sister because she absolutely loves the animated movies. I finally watched the third movie, How to Train Your Dragon, Hidden World, from start to finish. I've only seen parts of that, throughout the years. I really love the franchise now. It's a great franchise. I remember reading a couple of the books back in school. They were interesting. They were a bit confusing. I think the movie really not only does the appropriate spirit of the books, but I think it improves on the story itself. And then the live action movie, I think, did a phenomenal job at keeping like I said, the spirit and the soul of what the animated movie started, and kind of making the story even more fun to watch. After watching the live action movie, I wanted to go back and rewatch all three of those animated movies again. I just really got synced into this world. Um, I love the cast. I love the characters. I love the story. Um, Phenomenal job. I need to look up the director because actually the director of the animated movies ended up doing the live action movie as well, and that is Dean. Oh, I'm gonna butcher this name hard. Du Bois. I'm just gonna say Dean. Dean, you outdone yourself. Um, you kept the spirit of the animated movie alive, and you brought some fresh takes to the live action. It was this movie caught me by surprise. I was not expecting it to be arguably my favorite movie of the year so far. There's going to be a huge battle between this and Lilo and Stitch, I think, for not only movie of the year but the kids and family movie of the year, um, which will be one of the two of the cinematic awards that I will be uh, revealing on the show for the first time ever. So a little sneak peek there for all of you that have been following this show for a couple of years. I have another thing that has been in the works for a while, and it's finally getting revealed this year. So this is a great start to the summer. Like I said, I absolutely love this film. Love the cast. I think the way that they casted this movie paid tribute and paid respect to the animated movies. Um, the only person to return into their original character from the anime movie was Gerard Butler as Stoic, which was perfect. I think if you're going to bring back anybody back from that original movie, I'm glad it was Gerard Butler because he really is that character in real life. I think having anybody else in that role, it wouldn't have worked as great. And that might be me being a little biased because I absolutely love Gerard Butler. But he was great. I'm glad that they brought him back. There's rumors that they are looking at Kate Blanchett to return. Um, she, of course, played Hiccup's mother in the second film, and they are already talking to her about possibly coming back into that character in live action for the sequel, which has been pretty much greenlit at this point. I don't think they have officially greenlit it yet, but they've already been having discussions and they're already in pre-production for that sequel. Will they stop at one sequel? That I'm not sure of. Maybe they go and do a third movie and kind of bring the Hidden World animated film to life. Um, I know Dean, the director, has come out and said that he has actually plans for a fourth animated sequel to the franchise. So it's looking pretty bright for How to Train Your Dragon. I never did watch the animated show. I heard it's really good. I may have to dip my toes into that one finally. Uh, but this franchise is really incredible. It caught me off guard. Going through the cast here, we got Mason. I'm gonna butcher this hard. I think it's Thames or Thames. I'm not exactly sure, but I'm just gonna go with Mason. Mason was incredible as Hiccup. He is of course replacing. Let me look it up. Jay, what is his name? Burchell? Barsh. Really hate Jay. You know who Jay is? The original voice of Hiccup. I think he did a really good job at kind of bringing his own take to the character, but also paying respect to Jay. He had some of the same the voice tributes to it. He tried to sound the best he could, as Jay did in the animated, but also, like I said, bringing his own spin and his own take to the character. I really like him. I really hope to see him in more movies. I wonder if he has anything coming up. Let me look here. He's somebody I'm not too familiar with. I've never seen him before. I think this is his first. Oh, he was in Black Phone. Oh, that's a shame. I don't really care for Black Phone, but I may have to give that a rewatch since I know that Mason is in there. I don't. Oh, I guess he was in an episode of The Walker Show with Padalecki. So it looks like Black Phone is pretty much his bigger one. And now, of course, he is going to get labeled as Hiccup in this franchise, which is great. He did a phenomenal job. I absolutely love him as Hiccup. Um, then we have, like I said, Stoic. Gerard Butler, of course, returns into his original character. He was fantastic. I love the look of him. Very reminiscent of the original animated. Same thing with Hiccup. I think everybody looked pretty much pretty a lot like their original counterparts, with a few exceptions, and I'll get to those on the list. If you've seen the news and the movie itself, you know where I'm getting at with a couple of those names. But going back to Stoic, great. Gerard Butler is such a huge presence on the film. I don't know if you've seen any of the the red carpet videos or any of the behind the scenes, but he seemed to be a kind of a father figure to these kids, and that was great to see. He loves this franchise. He loves the character. So I'm really glad that he got the opportunity to bring it to life with himself, and not just his voice, but with his action and his incredible acting skills. So it's awesome to see him. We got Astrid, played by Nico Parker, who I absolutely love her. I think she was great as Astrid. I know the biggest thing surrounding her character is, of course, that she is not blonde; she is brunette. But I like to remind people, including my sister, who had a really hard time seeing her not blonde. She did have some streaks of blonde, so I don't know. Maybe come sequel time, maybe she goes full blonde to kind to appease the fans. I'm not a big believer in that. I think they should just commit to what version they're going with, and keep the brunette hair. I think because who cares what color hair she is? She did a phenomenal job at bringing Astrid to life. Um, I really love the fact that they changed a couple of scenes with her and Hiccup, where if you remember in the original animated movie, that dinner scene, she doesn't really like yell at Hiccup. She kind of just blows him off, and kind of leaves him. I love that they changed it in this live action version where she basically hands his ass to Hiccup. Like she just lays the law down for him, and I thought it was really good for her character. I think it was great for their relationship. I think it brought them closer together, and had Hiccup really be respectful of her, which was great. Looking at her IMDb, she's been in quite a bit of stuff. She was in the live action Dumbo, so she's no stranger to bringing animated movies to life. She was an episode in The Last of Us, which now that I read that out loud, I do remember her. I believe she was Ellie's girlfriend in the flashback, I think, if I remember right. She was in Reminiscence with Hugh Jackman. So yeah, she's got a decent IMDb so far, and then now she's adding a How to Train Your Dragon. She's got a bright future, I think. I think she's terrific in this movie. I think she's a terrific actress in general. It's really exciting to see what they do to her in the coming sequels, and then what she does career wise. I think she can pretty much get whatever job she wants after this project that she did. So we have Gober, who's played by Nick Frost this time. Unfortunately, they did not bring back Ferguson, who was the original voice. I think Greg Ferguson would have been great, but I understand that maybe he didn't quite work out that well with the live action look of Gober. Nick Frost definitely basically brought that character to life. It was like they ripped him out of the original animated, with the mustache, the peg leg, the missing hand, the hat that he wears, the clothes that he wears. Like they basically ripped Goldberg out of the animated original and just slapped him onto Nick Frost's face. Fantastic job. I really like him. I know a lot of people didn't care for his take, and they kind of wish that Frank Ferguson. And that's going to be the biggest thing to take from my review is I'm not attached to those animated films like a lot of people are. I came into that franchise late. It's one of those that I just didn't really cling to when it was coming out, but I respect them and I love them now. But I don't have that attachment to where, oh, you didn't change Astrid blonde, or Nick Frost doesn't really look like Gober that as well as he could have. I don't care about that stuff. I'm looking at the movie itself, and Nick Frost did an incredible job. I think comparing it from the original, he kind of brought his own spin to it, but he also paid respect to the original character, which is all we can ask for. We have Snotlout, who's played by Gabriel Howell. I don't recognize his name either. Let's look at his IMDb here. Yeah, I don't recognize anything. So he's a new face as well. I think he did pretty good. They definitely had the look right. Again, just kind of like Goldberg, they basically grabbed the costume and the look straight out of the original animated movie and slapped it on Gabriel, which was great. He had the attitude, you know, he was hitting on Astrid for a lot of the movie. Curious to see if they kind of switch that over to Rough Nut, just like in the second animated film. So I'm curious to see what they do with him. I love that little back and forth with his dad. I love like that they actually gave his dad some dialogue. If I'm remembering the original animated movie correctly, I don't think his dad had any dialogue. He just kind of ignored his kid. The live action, they actually gave him some dialogue, like, "Hey, don't talk to me in public," or he's proud of his kid at the very end. So it's really cool that they gave his dad some dialogue, and so they can kind of build that relationship a little bit better. So then we have Fish Legs, who's played by Julian Dennison, who I'm very familiar with. If you remember him, he was Fire Hands or something like that, and Deadpool 2. Oh, Fire Fist, that's what it was. I was pretty close. But he's been in a bunch of stuff lately. Godzilla versus Kong. He was in Bad Batch. I think he voiced some characters there. Then, like I said, Deadpool 2. So I'm very familiar with him. I think he was pretty good at Fish Legs. I know another thing similar to Astrid, you know, oh, Fish Legs wasn't blonde, or, you know, but I think Julian was great in there. You know, he brought his own take to it, but also, like, I sound like a broken record, but all these guys are bringing respect to the original movie, but putting their own spin on, because that's kind of what you do with remakes. You try to honor the original, but also kind of get your own take on it, which is really cool, I think. He brought his smarts to the table. You know, he's wicked smarts in dragon lore, and I remember that in the original movie as well. Him being kind of a bookworm and a dragon savant, I guess you could call him. So he brought that over to the live action, I think, beautifully. So then we have the twins, Rough Nut and Tough Nut. Rough Nut was played by, oh my God, I'm going to butcher this hard, Bronwyn James. And then Tough Nut was played by Harry Trevaldwin. Probably not how you pronounce it, but we're going to roll with it. We got Harry and Bronwyn playing Rough Nut and Tough Nut. Again, I think they did a fine job. Those two in particular, I was more of a fan of them in the animated movies. I think bringing them to live action was, I guess, a little tougher. I don't think they didn't look like twins, which kind of bothered me a little bit. But they had a piece of dialogue in there to kind of brush it off, like, "Oh, our moms couldn't even tell us apart." What obviously it was a joke because they look nothing alike, which was a little tougher. You know, Tough Nut could have looked a little more blonde, but this is their live action version, and I'm just gonna roll with it. You know, I'm not gonna be too nitpicky because, like I said, I'm not attached to the animated movies, but you know, it was a little bit off-putting that they weren't at least somewhat identical. Maybe next time, if I could have redone this, maybe you go actually try to find a pair of twins to put in a twins role, but whatever, you know, they did what they did. I'm sure they had their reasons for it. We're gonna roll with it. So yeah, that's pretty much the cast. I'm looking forward to seeing all these guys in the sequels. Fantastic job. Uh, but I'm missing one guy, and that is Toothless, and I did that on purpose because I absolutely love Toothless. He is in battle of becoming one of my favorite characters ever. I know Stitch has held that title for a long time, but I really like Toothless. I love the personality that they brought over from the animated to the live action, which I know is another big take that people are kind of arguing that, oh, they think Toothless had more of a personality in the animated movie. He didn't really do anything in the live action. I very much disagree. I think they did a beautiful job at bringing over that personality to the live action. I think the animation they used was incredible. You know, with a live action movie, you try to make it as realistic as you can, which of course it's not going to look exactly the same as the animated movie, even though they're, you know, still an animated character in a live action. It's just different technology when you go from an animated movie to a live action movie, similar to Stitch. You know, Stitch, they did the best that they could with Stitch, bringing what he looks like into the animated movie. into live action, but it's different technology. So obviously, it's going to be a little different. It's going to look different. He's going to act a little different. Um, but I think they did a great job with Toothless. No complaints here. I absolutely love him as a character, and I'm really excited to see him in more sequels in the live action. So moving on, a couple more notes I want to hit here. The action fight sequences, great. I love the dragon trials that they do with all the combat versus the different dragons was really cool. The opening sequence to the movie is very copy and paste from the original movie where we got dragons flying around, setting things on fire. You got the Vikings trying to fight them off. Really cool action, especially the dragon riding, which is another note that I have. And I actually have a giant note here. Best dragon flying sequences in a film? I think yes. I think not only in film, but I think in Hollywood in general. Better than Game of Thrones. Um, Absolutely love the dragon riding season here. What they did with Hiccup and Toothless was fantastic. It brought that spirit over from the original movie and kind of made it like, here, this is what it's going to look like if you actually rode a dragon. They're going through the rock formations. They're going through the mountains, the hills. It was freaking awesome. Like it felt like I was riding Toothless in that moment, kind of like the first person shots that they did. I think that very iconic scene from the animated movie where they get up to a certain point in the sky and Hiccup falls over Toothless and they're both flying in, free fall into the air, and Toothless has to catch him. I think it was phenomenal the way they filmed that. And the camera angles are terrific. The locations, the scenery was beautiful. I love how Burke looks in live action. It was, I believe they filmed all of it, if not some. I think most of it in Northern Ireland, which is a beautiful location out there. I would love to go visit where they filmed this movie because the islands and the rock formations were just gorgeous. I absolutely love it. But those dragon riding scenes are what really made this movie stand apart for me. I was just zoned out for like 20 minutes with these flying sequences. It's just incredibly well done. Bravo to their graphic department, their choreography director or coordinator, whatever you call them. Those scenes were just beautifully well done. Best dragon flying sequences I think ever put on film. It was just fantastic. I can't wait to watch it again. Some iconic moments I touched up on the first one, which was the dragon attacks / Hiccup shooting down the Night Fury and Burke. Pretty much copy and paste from the original movie. I was kind of like mouthing the quotes as they were playing, or I'm like, oh, I was talking to my brother, like, oh, they're probably gonna do this next too, and sure enough, they pretty much copy and paste it, which is not a bad thing, It's a very important scene. It's a very incredibly well done scene in both the animated and live action, so really well done. Another iconic moment is Hiccup, of course, touching Toothless for the first time. That was a huge trailer moment. That was a huge moment in the animated film. And I think they did a fantastic job at bringing that over to live action with Mason, kind of turning his head and then just sticking his hand out and having Toothless kind of come to him. I think that was a beautiful, beautiful moment that really sets the foundation for their relationship. It was incredibly well done. Hiccup and Toothless flying, which I've already talked about. I love when it's just those two, and then they pick up Astrid and show her what the dragons are capable of. I just really love the flying in here. It's fantastic. I can't wait to see what they do with the other sequels, because if they do this every time, this franchise would be a huge success, I think, in my mind, with the technology and what choreography they're able to do with all the dragon flying. It's incredible stuff. Hiccup must kill a dragon / Hiccup named Top Slayer. Very iconic moment from the animated original, and I think they did a really good job at bringing it over to live action. They actually, if I remember right, they actually stretched out that scene where Toothless comes flying into the arena and protecting Hiccup. He has more action, more fighting time, which I think was great for the character. We get to see him, show that he is protecting Hiccup. He has accepted Hiccup as a brother. Um, so I'm really glad that they got to really stretch that moment out and show us what how powerful Toothless really is. So awesome. And then, of course, at the very end, we have Hiccup losing his leg, which is a huge moment in the original film, and it leads into the sequels. I think they did a great job here at, you know, having that happen and then kind of switching over, not showing anything because, to my own surprise, this was a PG movie. I think if it was PG-13, we would have probably seen some blood or anything like that. But with it being PG, we got to cut all that out for the little kids, which they pretty much did that in the animated movie as well. We didn't see Hiccup's leg, you know, over on the side of the screen covered in blood and or him bleeding out profusely all over Toothless. So I think they did a really good job at keeping that moment in the live action and then addressing it in the next scene with his awesome peg leg, which I'm curious to see if they follow the sequel with with the cool attachments they put on there. So something to look forward to. I think they did a fantastic job with that. Um, Thinking of what else that they could do in the sequels, I hope they bring his flaming sword in. That was one of the things I really loved from the second film with his cool retractable flaming sword that he made. Of course, seeing his mom seems to be a high priority right now to get the original voice actress in there. Um, I would assume one of the sequels will be The Hidden World, where we get Toothless's future, lady friend, the Light Fury. So that would be really cool to see her in live action. Um, the villain of the next movie, if they follow what the second film did, that'd be Drago. And then eventually introducing, alphas and then watching Toothless become an alpha. I think that would be really great to see. Yeah, there's just a lot of different avenues they can go. They can keep following the animated movie story, or maybe they can change it up a little bit and have they have two avenues where they keep the animated storyline and then maybe they go live action where they kind of change the story a little bit to give people two different stories that kind of respect one another. There's a lot of different avenues they can go as far as sequels, but I think this is definitely going to be a really big franchise going forward. Um, like I said at the top of the episode in the news segment of today, the movie made back its budget in the first weekend. So that's really good for them. Anything going forward, it's all profit now, which is really good for the studio, really good for the director Dean and the future of this franchise. So I think it's a bright future for How to Train Your Dragon. Um, I'm really looking forward to watching this movie again. I already have my pre-order in for the digital version of it, so I'm super excited to watch it at home. So go check out How to Train Your Dragon in theaters if you have not. My guess is that it's going to hit one of the streaming services later this fall, probably Paramount or Peacock. I think this is DreamWorks, so my guess it would be Peacock maybe. But I could also see, streaming services like Netflix or Max or one of those bigger ones pick it up as well to kind of get some attention to their streaming services. So absolutely love the film. Let's wrap it up with the ranking segments for the day. All right, to kick off today's rankings, we have the very first blockbuster showdown. This is where I put together two blockbuster films to face each other to see which one comes out on top. We have Lilo and Stitch versus How to Train Your Dragon. We're pitting Stitch against Toothless. I'm going to put Toothless on top. I know Lilo and Stitch is making a really big run right now, hitting $850 million. But I think overall, I enjoyed How to Train Your Dragon more than Lilo and Stitch. Maybe it doesn't make as much money as Lilo and Stitch, but I think looking at the movies themselves, I think How to Train Your Dragon was a better movie than Lilo and Stitch. This is going to be very tough when I do the Cinematic Awards for 2025 because these two are in contention for Movie of the Year as well as going against each other for the Kids and Family Movie of the Year. So that is my take on the two live action movies for this blockbuster showdown. Next up, we have the animated original versus the live action remake. I'm going to get a lot of hate and a lot of heat for this, but I'm going to stick to my guns. I'm going to commit. I think I prefer the live action remake to the animated original. I felt way more emotion in the live action uh, fight scenes with Toothless and Hiccup. Really love the Nico Parker and Mason's relationship as Astrid and Hiccup. I love Hiccup's relationship with Toothless in the live action remake. Now, this is not knocking the animated original. I really like that franchise. I can't wait to rewatch those again. But I think I prefer the live action remake over the animated original. Um, and now that I say it out loud, I'm not going to say I think. I know. I like the animated one a little bit less than the live action remake. So come at me in the comments below. Come at me on social media. But that is how I feel. That is my take, and that is what I believe. I believe I enjoyed and like and prefer the live action remake of How to Train Your Dragon over the beloved animated original. So come at me. And then finally, we have the cinematic reviews coveted popcorn scale. Now, based on the dragon riding scenes, the cast, the story, the cinematography, the scenery, all that stuff, the music. I haven't even talked about the music yet. The music is so incredible in this movie. I love that they brought over the main theme and a bunch of other music over from the original into the live action remake. I'm giving this movie the golden popcorn bucket. This is our top. This is the top tier in the popcorn scale. So it is pitting up right on the same level as Lilo and Stitch because I also gave that the golden bucket award. So I am giving How to Train Your Dragon, the 2025 live action remake, the golden popcorn bucket tier. So I'll be posting all that on all the social media pages in the coming days. But that's it for today's episode. On next time, I will be reviewing Christopher Nolan's finale of his Batman trilogy with The Dark Knight Rises. I'm super excited for that episode. So check that episode out when it airs later this week. Until then, have fun on your dragons, everybody. I'll see you all next time on the show.